Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese here as always with Nima Tavali. So just 3 rounds to go in the Serie A season. Another huge weekend of action for us to review today. Inter continuing their unstoppable run of form with another win. Romelu Lukaku, he can't stop scoring. Milan, they are in deep crisis. They lose to relegation threatened Spezia. Juventus have all but booked a top 4 place on the pitch, while Lazio and Roma slip up again. We'll also be previewing a huge week of European action, the second leg in the Champions League of the semi-final of Inter versus Milan, and the Europa League semi-finals, Juventus and Roma in action, Fiorentina in the Conference League semi-final with a lot of work to do to turn around their tie. So lots to talk about today. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode, which we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday, where we answer all the questions sent in from our Patreons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show and interviews, post-match reaction and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $2.99 a month plus VAT. And for all of you listening on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate a 5-star rating. Give us a follow, subscribe to us. It really helps us to grow. Also check us out on YouTube as well. We've just broken 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. So big thanks to everyone that supports us there as well. Okay, let's get into it, Nima. Right, we're going to start off with the Milan clubs, and then we'll do a preview from that on the second leg of the Champions League semi-final. But we will start with Milan because Milan are really in crisis now. They lose 2-0 to Spezia on Saturday. In what was a dreadful performance. Rafael Leao wasn't playing again, just as he wasn't against Inter in the Champions League defeat in the week. So the question is now, Nima, is it a case of no Leao, no Milan?
You mean Leao and Inshallah? Yeah, look, when it comes to their attack, look, I've said it for many years now. He's been there for 3.5 years, and I think that's been evident that's the case. In terms of the attacking phase, Pioli, which is funny because he used to kind of be criticized for the opposite, where, you know, he used to actually, his teams used to score quite a bit, but they used to leak. Here it's the other way around at Milan. And I think that's, well, I mean, I say it's a little bit funny or strange, but not really, because when you're at one of the big 3 clubs, one of the big 3 striped clubs, then that's how it looks. You have to have defensive solidity. If you're at Juve, Inter, and Milan, and you hemorrhage goals, you'll get thrown out. And he's realized that, and he's handled it really well. But I think there is a real serious case to be made as to how poorly his Milan, after 3.5 years in the attacking phase, they just come up short. And they rely so much on just one player resolving it for them. Now, that's not just any player, it's Rafael Leao. He would resolve many problems at most clubs in the world. But the fact that they just cannot systematically break down. I mean, if you compare with Simone Inzaghi and Inter, who are a team who are one of the worst dribblers, both for attempts and, you know, completed dribbles in all of Europe, but yet for shots on goal and XG in all of Europe amongst the top 4, that's because there is a clear plan, there's a clear structure in both phases. There isn't that in attack for Milan. And so when Leao isn't there, they get exposed at that. And I think that's a problem. The
stats show it, though. The stats are clear. Milan have just 1 win in 12 games this season when Leao hasn't started due to unavailability, whether it's an injury or suspension. I mean, that's terrible.
Can't be clearer than that, can it? I mean, you know. But having said that, I do look. It's Spezia. They were fighting for their lives, and I said it last week on the pod on Monday. I said, look, this is not a walkover. Milan have to be careful here because, or it was on Thursday pod rather. Sorry. they have to be careful because Spezia are literally fighting for their lives. And we know that they are good at home. And now they have beaten both Milan clubs at home, albeit very different games, but with very almost identical outcomes. And it sends Milan into a little bit of a mini crisis because this is now when they have to start delivering results, and they've got 2-0 defeats in a row now.
No, I mean just pressing on the whole no Leao, no Milan, nothing in attack, and Giroud didn't play in this game either. He came on as a sub. I'm seeing a lot of Milan fans actually starting to compare Pioli to Allegri in terms of the patterns of play and I mean, you said it yourself, but Leao and Inshallah. I mean, is it a player issue, the problem in attack when Leao's not playing, or is it a manager issue, or is it both?
I think it's both. The funny thing, as I said, also is that if you look at Pioli's career, creating goal-scoring chances has never really been a problem. He does have an attacking identity. The problem has been that at those clubs, he gets found out really quickly, and then he has to, shore up the defense. And that's what I mean, the Pioli high. It's beautiful but short and sweet. Here he's managed to calibrate that and handle those situations because, he has shored up the defense and they've managed to bounce back and the individuals have been able to understand what he wants them to do. Now, I don't think it's an Allegri situation. Allegri is much more conservative as a coach, as a tactician, than Pioli's ever been. But I do think that there is an issue here. I think he realizes that the squad has limitations and he's trying to work wonders with what he's got, which he already kind of has, having won the Serie A title last season. But as you can't live on that forever. And I think that's why Milan are in 5th, 5 points off Inter in 3rd. And no one's really criticizing him heavily, saying he should be sacked. If that were not the case, if he didn't have that Scudetto to fall back on, I think he might already have been sacked even, because this season has not been very good. Yes, the Champions League is fantastic, but they do seem to, I mean, how many times this season have we seen Milan in complete defensive freefall and can't create anything in attack? And then they bounce back. He changed to a 3-5-2, 3-4-2-1. That gave some effect, and he moved back to his 4-2-3-1 because that's how he wants to play. But it just seems to be that he's almost always trying to put out fires. And I think that makes me kind of think, well, hang on a minute, that's actually a little bit more a personnel issue than a managerial issue, because when the players obviously that he's got today are not ready to execute what he wants them to do, and so he has to make the best with what he's got. But having said that, it's Spezia away, for crying out loud. You should be able to handle that and get a result.
Especially with Spezia's form going into this game. And Milan's form is really bad. It's really bad right now. I mean, 1 win in 5 games, two wins in 8 games. Since the start of March, 15 matches, 5 wins, 7 draws, 4 defeats. So whether you're looking short or medium term, I mean, and you look over the course of the season, of course, Milan are out of the top 4. They're is it 4 points from Lazio? 4 points from Lazio in 4th. Milan are 5th, Lazio in 4th. 3 games left. Juventus still have Milan still have to go away to Juventus as well. I mean, realistically, on paper, they're not getting into the top 4. They're going to be relying on Juventus losing points, getting the points penalty, which most people expect to be 9. Well, they're 8 points behind Juventus. If Juventus beat Milan, it's in Juventus' hands to finish.
That's
more
what
than
I was going
to
say. I'm so glad you brought that up.
So I tweeted this on Saturday or Sunday. So it's in Juventus' hands to finish to finish above Juventus, to finish above Milan after the points penalty has gone through. Then it's basically Milan are basically, you're saying inshallah, they're basically Sheferin and inshallah. Basically, that's what they are. That's what they are after. They're basically relying on Sheferin's hatred of Juventus and the Super League.
There's no hatred by Ceferin against Juve. Come on, there's actual convictions out there. come on. It's not about that.
They're relying on Schäferin, basically.
They're relying on UEFA to impose their laws and rules and regulations. And they shouldn't be in that situation. There's no way they should be in this situation. And there's no doubt about that. And I think
just before we move on to Spezia and just give some credit to Spezia, I've had this from a few of our patrons, so I think it's only fair to bring it up. But the Esposito push on Brahim Diaz, should VAR have intervened on that?
Did the referee? Well, that depends if the referee saw it or not. I mean, again, if he sees it and
should it have been a penalty?
Again, it's the referee's. Did he see the situation? What did he see? And if he saw it and decided that doesn't warrant a push.
But was it a penalty though? Should it have been a penalty? Forget about the VAR. Was it a penalty? Basically, he pushed Brahim with two hands.
Well, let's
in
just
the back.
say that we've seen them given and we've seen them not given. I mean, I wouldn't have complaints either way. I just think that in these penalties, in the penalty area, there needs to, because we see this shirt pulling all the time, the pushing and pulling we see all the time in every situation. That did look very. I did note it when I saw it. I was thinking, okay, well, that's a bit stupid by them because you don't do that. But I mean, again, if the referee saw it and he saw it live and decided, well, no, that's not warranted enough, then it is what it is. I don't know. What do you think?
It's a difficult one. I mean, you push someone with two hands in their back.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, but it also do. I agree, but it's also it depends on what kind of push it is. Is it the kind of push where, he takes? Do you know what I mean? He's charges over when you were kids and kids pushing each other.
I think
over
it is one of those. We've seen them give them.
Yeah.
We've seen them not give them.
Yeah. I mean, it's I thought it was stupid by Esposito. You don't. There's no need to do that. You should be a bit more careful, especially if you're a side trying to fight for your life to avoid relegation. You have to be more disciplined. But look, he did score an absolute stunning free kick.
Amazing, yeah.
This Esposito family. I mean, Sebastiano and Salvatore, at least, we don't really know much about the character of the young one, but they have talent, but they just don't seem to be able to maintain the discipline to express
It's
that
interesting
talent
about Esposito.
week in and week out. I mean, remember what Tacopina told us, that he sold him because of the negativity he was sharing, his attitude in the dressing room. Literally told us that.
He's a fantastic player. I've always rated him. Even when it was with the under-21s in Italy, have always had this. It's a golden generation of central midfielders that Italy have had in the last 5 years, and that goes down to the under-21s and the youngsters coming through. And I remember when he was there, and he was, for me, he always generally used to be the best performing player in the under-21s out of all of those. When everyone else was talking about Rovella and Fagioli and Miretti and
he
all
was
these
the
others.
star.
He was the one that always performed the best in the under-21s.
I mean, this is why when he joined Spezia in January, when we did our Mercato January review, I said I think he's going to be the best signing of the January market, because there was hardly any January markets, or breakout star, I think we were asked on the Q&A pod. And you had Højlund and I had Salvatore Esposito.
I think I still win that one.
I think you win that one by 9-0. I think you win that one by 9-0.
There's no doubt about the quality. There's no doubt there's quality. He's got the quality there. And it's funny actually that he scored, because I was speaking to my dad just before the game started. And because Esposito is, my dad was telling me how he has someone working for him who's an Esposito that's just started working with him, and how Esposito is a really, really popular name. It's one of the most popular names in Italy.
Isn't it in Naples? Are they from Naples?
In the Naples region, yeah. It's a Neapolitan name. And the reason why it's so popular is because in the past, all the Italian kids that were put up into orphanages in the past, they were given the name Esposito because they were orphans. And that's why the name became so popular. So, a lot of the Espositos, obviously, through the generations, have come from, originated from ancestors who were orphans. So, yeah, a little bit of history there for everybody that wants to know.
No, seriously, that's brilliant. I just did not see that.
I know, it's an amazing story, isn't it? I thought I'd share it. Yeah. But it's funny because my dad told me about it. He was telling me the story, and then a couple of hours later, Esposito scores this amazing.
No, but look,
kick.
as I said, I mean, I've always believed in this. I think he is the main one. I'm not so far out of the ones. I mean, I've not seen the little one yet, but I think this is the one that I personally, when they were both coming up, this is the one that I had my eyes on. I think I think there could be a player there. I just hope that he can sort his off-field attitude out, because I think there is a player there that could be very interesting.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Unzola I thought was really great as well, and definitely
he can't stay at Spezia. Like, come on. I mean, someone has to buy him, because he's
I think he's a handful.
monster.
I mean, when you compare him to like what Milan's forwards were doing, I mean,
again, it's the same thing again as with Inter. I mean, he outshone Lukaku in that game, and now he did the same against Milan. I really, really rate this player. I think there is a player there, and the fact that he can hold up the ball so much, and he's such a handful. He can occupy a 4-man defense all on his own. And he's such a pain in the butt.
I like him. I do like him. Talking about Lukaku, who you just mentioned, let's move on to Inter, because Inter are on fire, but Lukaku's on fire. He cannot stop scoring right now. And this was, in my opinion, not a particularly great performance by Inter. I know they rested lots of players. I thought Inter got a little bit lucky in this game, but there's no doubt about Lukaku. There's no doubt about Lukaku's performance. I mean,
he was the man of the match.
Monstrous.
There's no doubt about that. He was the man of the match, without a doubt. He was absolutely fantastic. The hold-up play was brilliant. His back against the goal, his link-up play when the ball got at his feet, his strength, his speed. He was outstanding. He was simply outstanding, and his finishing was there. No, he's starting to. He looks like he's in form now. Finally, when it matters the most. But no, I thought he was outstanding. I mean, he's got 11 goal contributions, I think, in all competitions, and 7 since the start of April in 7 starts. I mean, what are you going to say? What else can you say? He was the man of the match. He's the reason Inter win that game, in a game where Inter really, really aren't that good. Where Inter they weren't switched on mentally. It was so obvious that their heads were on Tuesday or tomorrow, and that could bite you in the butt. They were lucky. But I think Inter have deserved their luck with everything that's happened this season.
But they put their chances away.
Exactly.
This is the difference.
This is the difference. That they for once, they've shown this kind of killer instinct in the last few weeks.
When you have a 50-50 game where both teams have as many, I mean, I think both teams had as many chances as each other in this game. Yeah. It comes down to who puts their chances away.
Exactly. And that's what Lukaku did. He scored, and Inter were lucky with the deflections. Let's be honest. I mean, those deflect. Inter have had missed sitters, and now those two deflections.
No, that run Tresoldi, I think that game goes down as one of the most disastrous defensive performances by a defender I've ever seen in my life. All 4 of the goals were his fault.
Yeah,
two of them were deflections off him, and the other 2 were he got manhandled by Lukaku and done by Lukaku.
But I got to say, that 4th goal, go look at that. Simone Inzaghi's football. Like, that is peak Inzaghi ball. The way that they create down the left or down the right, they do this all over the pitch, create numerical advantages in triangles, and saw themselves through until they find the opening and space. And they're so patient at doing that. And it's no surprise to me that it's Brozovic who assists Lukaku for that goal, that he's on the pitch wanting to do that. So no, it was
top four basically secure now.
Absolutely. I think it would take something really, 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 really surprising, because they're 5 points clear of Milan.
3 games left. I
mean, even if they lose against a Napoli who are on holiday, I mean, Napoli are on the beach. Napoli are not there. I don't know if you saw against Monza, but it was essentially Spalletti and friends on a class, basically it was a holiday of 9-10-year-olds with her
Spalletti and Biancaneve.
Yeah, exactly. It was like class with teacher Spalletti on a school field trip to Monza. Like, they just did not, like, they have switched off completely. And God, I mean, who can blame them? They deserve it. Like, let's not. I'm not criticizing them. Don't get it.
I think Inter have got it. And what was also good for Inter in this game, they rested 7, maybe 8 of the players who will start against Milan.
Again, he's rotating. That he understands that it's key. He said it even before the games, or even last week. He said, "Look, we've been playing every 3 days since April 1st." He has to rotate. He has no choice. And because when he does it, when he gets to the last few games like Napoli and Fiorentina, the cup final, he can't rotate as much. And he'll have to rely more on players. And so he needs them fresh. And so he has no choice. That's why you need your directors to do a good damn job in the off-season and give you players that are fresh and can give you quality. Players that aren't named Joaquin Correa, for one, who came off injured again. After stinking up the place again. And Roberto Gagliardini, who, I mean, this guy, I've never seen Inter fans count down until his contract expires. He is so poor. And it's gotten so bad where I'm starting to feel bad for the guy.
Like the Italian Pogba, he was labelled as a youngster.
Jesus.
Well, actually, probably better than Pogba right now. We'll get to that. But just before we get on to Sassuolo, 7 wins in a row for Inter
in all
now.
competitions.
Yeah, 21 goals scored in those 7 games, and also interestingly, 66 goals for the season now. That's only 4 behind Napoli, who are the highest scorers in the league. So Inter could actually end up this season as the highest scorers in Serie A.
It's what you and I both have been saying on this pod for months, that the problems at Inter are because the strikers haven't delivered. They are the ones who'd let them down, and now they're not letting them down, and so they're winning. I mean, if your marquee, if your big name players, the players that you pay the most money to, that are supposed to be the difference makers, don't turn up for 60% of the season, well, you're going to struggle. Any team would.
Yeah, as for Sassuolo, as I said, I thought they were very unlucky in this game. In fact, I'm looking at the XG, and
they were better.
They have a higher XG than Inter, 2.2 to 1.8.
They were better.
They were unlucky, but I do want to give a shout out to Frattesi in this game, and we saw again why he's wanted by the big clubs, and he's just a very complete player. He just can do a bit of everything, and I know you don't like the comparison to Barella, but
I think it's unfair to him.
I really do see Barella in him.
No, I do. The thing is, it's not that I don't like the comparison. I don't like when they call him a poor man's Barella because I think it's unfair to him. I think, I think he man. I think we're not. I think he actually is a player that's good enough to start in one of the top 4 teams. The problem is that Nicolo Barella is just better than him, at least now. Up until this point in their careers. But to me,
what I like about him is he gets into scoring positions. I mean, I counted in this game 4 times he got into goal scoring positions, and he scored 1, but he had 3 other chances as well. And he's been great. And I'd also just want to say, Pinamonti, Inter took them to the cleaners with that sale. I mean, he's awful. He's absolutely awful. I'm sure now that he's not even good enough for Sassuolo. He's not even good enough for their level.
I've always, for me, since this guy came up, I've never saw it. And when Raiola, God rest his soul, when he was talking about how he's going to be a superstar, I was like, no, he's really not. He will never. I don't see what they all saw. I never saw it. I've never seen. I think he's a decent Serie A striker that plays in a mid-table to relegation side team. But he's not better than that. He's never been better than that. And that's why I was so thrilled when he was banging in goals, bringing his price up. And Marotta managed to fool someone to pay however much it was to get him. And thank God for that. Yeah. Because he's not very good. But no, as for Frattesi, look, as I said last week, I really rate this guy. I really hope he goes to Roma. He is from Rome. He is Roman. He came up through the youth ranks there, and he would play there, and he would be important there.
Yeah, and they have a 30% sell-on clause on him as well, which makes the deal a lot cheaper for them than anyone else. Yeah. Right, let's do Inter versus Milan then. Second leg preview, because the second leg is on Tuesday. Of course, Inter 2-0 up from the first leg. Inter now with their own fans in the San Siro for the second leg. They're huge favourites. As I said on Thursday, the odds with the bookmakers, you can get 33-1 on for Inter to go through, and Milan you can actually get odds of 14-1. So I don't know if you fancy a little bet. I wouldn't recommend it, but we already spoke about this on Thursday. But let me ask you 2 questions. First of all, from Inter's point of view, who should Inter play and what should their approach be? Should they play the same team, or should they, as you said the other day, should they play Brozovic and Lukaku instead of Çalhanoğlu and Dzeko?
No, not instead of Çalhanoğlu. Absolutely not. My dream midfield is Barella, Çalhanoğlu, Brozovic. In this game,
Okay, so you drop Mkhitaryan.
yes, I do. I think as a second half sub, when you need someone to come in, when Brozovic is tired, when Çalhanoğlu's tired, when Barella's tired, that's who you bring in. You bring in someone with his experience and cool head to control the midfield. As for Lukaku, I think this is a game that is going to have acres of space. And that's why you play Romelu Lukaku in acres of space with his physique, with his ability to hold up the ball. There is no one can get the ball off him when his back is against the goal and you pass him to his feet. He can. The only way he loses that ball is if he trips over his own foot or trips over the ball or loses it because of a technical error that he makes. But you don't outmuscle Romelu Lukaku. And if he's starting to look physically as he's starting to, like when he turns and he passes the ball and starts running, he looks, I mean, he's not as good as he was 2 years ago, no doubt about that. But when there's space to attack, he can cause you problems. So for me, it's a no-brainer. You start, that's the team you start. Especially when you've got Leao and Theo on the left, which I expect both of them to start against Milan because they don't have anything like this. They have to risk it. They have to risk Leao. I mean, it's just that simple. They've got nothing to lose. And so
we know though that Dzeko's going to start. I mean, we know he didn't play at the weekend, and he's going to play. He's going to play this game.
I think that's a mistake. As for the same reason that I thought it was correct to play Dzeko and Mkhitaryan in the first leg, because of the kind of game I was expecting Milan to play. For the same reason, but the opposite. Now I think it's a mistake to start Dzeko and Mkhitaryan. I think with that midfield of Brozovic, Çalhanoğlu and Barella, you have the complete midfield that is both direct, patient, great passes, fantastic movement, cover more pitch than anyone else, and Romelu Lukaku for physique and holding up the ball and giving Inter a breather, and also the acres of space. Edin Dzeko is good at many things. He can't, like, Inter's counterattacks are dead when he's on the pitch. Because he can't counterattack. He can't drive the ball quickly. And it's not his fault. He's 37 years old. It's just not the kind of football that suits him. So I hope that it's Lula on the weekend. Tomorrow. It's Tuesday tomorrow.
Yeah, I think maybe Inzaghi also. Is Correa going to be out? Will he definitely be out?
Well, they said that he could be, but I don't think he's starting that guy. I think he's out. Yeah.
Okay. As from the Milan point of view, what should their approach be? I mean,
without Benasser too, yeah.
That's the question. Who comes in for Benasser?
I would play.
And what formation do they play? Do they stick with the 4-2-3-1? Do they? I mean, who plays? I mean, they don't have many options in centre midfield. I mean, does Pogba play?
I'd play 3-5-2.
Didn't go very well.
I'd play a 3-5-2 with Leao behind Giroud, because I think if he has to go for it, he has to do something, doesn't he?
But that was a disaster when they played against Inter with a 3-5-2.
But after that they played really well as a three in a back three.
Not for me. Not for me. I think that they showed in the 3-5-2 they just don't create any chances in the 3-5-2. They need to somehow overturn a 2-goal deficit. I don't know what the solution is because I just think Inter are just
I think they need to play. I think Kjaer, Tomori, and Chao. I'd play, and then probably, and then in the middle, like you say, I mean, Krunic, Benasser, and who do they start next to him? Is it 3-4-2-1 then with Brahim Diaz and Leao behind Giroud? That could be a way to handle it, to handle Benasser's absence. Salamakers is a right winger. I don't know. I just think that if you need to do something. You need to throw something that Simone isn't expecting in order to turn this tie around, and maybe a 3-4-2-1 could be it. That is my, that's I'm just thinking out loud here because they have 2 goals they need to claw back. Maybe start Origi. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was thinking purely from a historical point of view that we saw what he did with Liverpool when they made that famous comeback against Barcelona. And Liverpool were decimated as well for that. People forget how decimated Liverpool were. I'm trying to remember what their attack was in that game, but I remember it being really bad, and they somehow still won that game 4-0. And so, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's down to Leao. Can Leao rescue Milan? Obviously, he makes a huge difference, but is he fully fit? Is it going to be like Osimhen against Milan, where he wasn't fully fit? He still was useful. He still scored, but it wasn't Osimhen at his best. Will Leao be at his best? Muscular injury back, 10 days later. I'm not sure he's going to be at his full fitness, to be honest with you. Just knowing from muscular injuries like he got, they take 2 to 3 weeks, and you're pushing it then,
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I think,
well, he did train partially. We should say that he did train partially with the squad yesterday. We're recording this on a Monday, so on Sunday he trained with the squad partially. So there's
training partially, there's training fully, but then there's playing and there's playing.
No, but I'm saying that it shows that he's on the right track, is what I mean.
Of course, but I think the game potentially comes too soon for him. But Milan have to get. I think he'll play because he has to play. Milan season's on it, but whether or not he's going to be at a level required to be the real Leao that can turn this around, and like he did in the first game in this season when he was really great. Whatever happens, Milan need the first goal. If they can get the first goal, then that can get in Inter's head. Maybe can psychologically can turn around the tide. That's the only way I see Milan winning this. If there's a mental shift in this game, because if it comes down to technical levels and the players on the pitch and player for player, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Inter are a better team. They're in better form. The matchups they win, I mean, they win this, they go through. But it's football, and in football, anything's possible.
La palla è rotonda, no?
That's it. Right, let's move on to Juventus, who beat Cremonese 2-0. But there's only one talking point from this game, really, and that is the really, really sad scenes of Paul Pogba going off in tears. His first start of the season, his first start since returning to Juventus last summer from Manchester United on that free transfer. His first start in 390 days. The last start was on April the 19th, 2022 for Man United against Liverpool. But this first start, it only lasted 24 minutes. He tried a clipped ball, and he's pulled a muscle in his thigh. He goes off in tears. Di Maria comes off the bench and consoles him. I mean, first of all, before we look at what this means for his career and his future, I mean, first of all, that was just such a sad sight, wasn't it, Nima? You couldn't help but feel really sorry for him.
It was heartbreaking. It was really, really heartbreaking. It wasn't nice to see him completely break down like that. And you can't help but feel empathy with someone whose career has been marred with, this is not the career anyone expected him to have. And it's been injury after injury after injury after injury. And it's a shame. But this is, we've been saying, I think we both have been saying, and I know I haven't been saying, maybe, he can't cut it physically at this level. The talent and quality we all know. Who he is, what he can do, what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are, but I wonder if he can cut it. I've said it for many, since Juve bought him. I mean, that was on paper. We said it. It's a great signing on paper, but the injuries are a huge question mark. And it started off awfully. Juventus didn't do him any favors. They should have operated him immediately. They didn't. They made it worse. They operated him. He missed the World Cup and all of Juventus season.
That was a two-way thing, though. I mean, Juventus, I blame. They should have put their foot down. Yeah. And they should have said, look, we're the bosses. We pay your salary. This is what you're doing. Or you don't play for us. They should have said that. But this was Pogba as well. This was Pogba using his influence and his power and his entourage and saying, well, I want to play in the World Cup, so I want to do it this way. And then it backfired, of course. And so they're both to blame as much as each other. Juventus are just as much to blame as Pogba for the way that injury was handled. But the injuries are, I mean, it's not just this season with the injuries. I mean, yes, this season is a total disaster. That was his 6th injury of the season. And he's played just 162 minutes of football this season. They're all been recently, since April, been like very short sub appearances between like 10 and 20 odd minutes long, but that's all he's played. And he didn't make his first appearance till the end of February. He didn't make his first start till last night. But it's not just this season. His injury record over recent years is horrific. He's missed over 150 games for club and country in the last 4 seasons. And it's clear now, at the age of 30 that his body, it just can't cope with the rigors of top level football anymore. And his body just is literally it's falling apart. I mean, to get injured so easily. I mean, he wasn't doing anything exerting yesterday with that ball. It was just a little clipped ball cross, and he pulls a muscle in his thigh. I mean, he wasn't put under any pressure. He wasn't put under stress. He wasn't going for a real sprint. And maybe sometimes people with weak hamstrings, when you go for a real full out sprint, you can pull a muscle in your hamstring. Or people that, like myself, for example, I've got flat feet. I have, and that puts a lot of pressure on my knees and ankles. And when I played, I used to be so susceptible to knee and ankle injuries, because as soon as I just twisted or I didn't land in the right way, I would twist. Some people are injury prone, but with Pogba, it just feels like his body is just given up on him. That's what it feels, because to get injured that easily, I don't know if it can be sorted, to be honest, because this has been going on for years. For 4 years, this has been going on. So the idea that it's suddenly going to, at the age of, in his 30s, it's suddenly going to, solve itself. I hope I'm wrong, but I just don't really see it.
I don't think so. I don't think you're wrong. I think we both called it. It's a big risk, and I think it was a risk worth taking, because it's still it's still Pogba on a free transfer, but it didn't pay out. It didn't pay off, and he's not. I don't think he'll ever be the player he once was ever again. And I don't think.
But can I just say for the record, Nima, I was against this signing.
Yeah, you were. I remember.
I got much abuse from it.
I remember you said it was an unnecessary risk. I remember it in our Mercato review. You literally said this is an unnecessary risk that you didn't think was going to pay off, and I said, I remember me saying to you that.
I mean, I would have been for the risk, Nima, if it was a 2-year contract, or maybe at most a 3-year contract. But a 4-year contract, you're giving him 10 million a year, and that's not including taxes. I mean, that's too much. That's too much for a club that we already knew their financial problems, and we're seeing even more now with what's going on from COVID and the effect that had on the club, and all the capital injections that they've had to get from their holding company and all that. We've seen it. So then, I mean, you just can't justify it. And when you add him and Allegri together, you're looking at 20 million a year, not including taxes, on Pogba and Allegri. And I'm sorry, that's just not sustainable, and it's just not justifiable with what we're getting out of him.
I think with Allegri, I take issue with you there. But with Pogba, I think it was a risk. It was a risk, and it didn't pay off. And I think you're absolutely right. Every risk, everything you do, you have to assess the risks. And like you said, a 4-year contract, 10 million net a year, with that injury with that injury history,
injury record,
it's just it was a very, very big risk, and it didn't pay off. I don't think it will pay off. I think Juve and him will kind of have a talk this summer and say, look, I wouldn't be surprised if he went, like I said a couple of months ago. I think wouldn't be surprised if we saw Messi, Ronaldo, and Pogba in Saudi Arabia.
That's sad, isn't it? To see Pogba in Saudi Arabia at the age of 30. That's sad. That is really sad. At that age. I'm not saying, before any of the Saudi Arabian listeners have a go at me, I'm not saying, don't go to Saudi Arabia, but I'm saying at the peak, he should still be playing at, in the peak of his career at 30. To basically, for us here to be sitting here discussing, is his career over? It's sad.
Very sad. It's very sad. And I think if we're looking, I know he's achieved quite a bit in his career, but I can't help but feel one of the biggest what ifs is Paul Pogba. I think he could have been so much better if his career, if he hadn't gone to Man United, if not for the injuries. I honestly think we would be talking about one of the greatest midfielders of his generation for accomplishment, not just talent.
But when he made that move, and with the world record fee to Man United in summer of 2016, most people, it was just widely kind of accepted. This was the maybe not just yet, but this was going to be the dominant central midfielder on the planet for the next 5 years or more.
Yeah, it was.
Didn't happen.
No, it didn't, because United are what they are, and also his injuries, and also remember. I remember vividly this. Who did Mourinho want when he signed Pogba? Marcelo Brozovic. again, someone who does the running. That's when I think Pogba is at his best. If you can find a Kante or a Brozovic or someone who does the running with him, for him, then with his skill, with his intelligence, you have a fantastic world-class midfield.
Yeah, with Pogba, it was always, for me, he was always a supporting actor in movie terms. He wasn't a leading actor.
No, he was never.
He needed someone to carry to be the leading actor of the midfield, and he was someone that would just that would support and add the class to it. And I think that was his issue if we're talking in general terms of his career. But the injuries have obviously ravaged him, and I do think that the ordeal that he's had in the last year or so with the kidnapping and the blackmail
with his brother,
sweet brother.
Jesus.
I think that's definitely taken a toll, because anybody that knows anything about health knows that your mental
that kind of stress would drive.
Yeah, mental stress is absolutely key in your overall physical well-being. It's absolutely crucial, and I think that has definitely. I mean, that's obviously not the only reason, because we've seen it. It's been gone on for years before that, but. He's not in a good frame of mind.
No,
he's even admitted it in interviews. He's not been in a good frame of mind mentally. And when your body is under mental stress, the injuries follow. And you can see he's not at peace with himself.
He's not.
He feels, even when you see him on the pitch, so I think that's definitely played a role for him as well. But we wish him all the best, because
I really do, because it was pain. It was heartbreaking to see. It was really,
and I think he could have been useful for Juventus for the rest of the season.
For sure. Look, a fit Paul Pogba is useful to any team.
But but even for 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the end this season, I think he would have been. I think he would have been useful. And we saw he got the assist in the game against Sevilla. But just a brief mention of the game itself. I mean, not much to say about the game. I mean, I think it was a comfortable win. I would have personally liked Juventus to rotate a bit more ahead of the Sevilla game, but I think the Juventus had an eye on this. They're now 8 points ahead of fifth place Milan.
Well, exactly.
And
they're literally one game away from securing, top four.
Yeah, absolutely. They can beat Milan now and finish. Have it. Like I said, then it will be down to UEFA to ban them. Otherwise, they're in the top four next season, even with the points penalty, which would be, a great achievement. I do want to ask you one thing though. What do you think of this kit, this new Juventus kit?
I thought it was horrible off the pitch, but on the pitch, I thought it would look pretty okay. I thought,
really?
I thought it was okay on the pitch. That's the thing. It's like this is something that I've noticed a few couple of years. Like when I see kits, I'm thinking that is horrible, but then you see it on the pitch, and it's like, that's actually not that bad. I thought because of like from the camera angles, if you know what I mean. The yellow blends in really nice with the green of the grass. I thought. I mean, off the pitch, yes, it's dreadful, but on the pitch, I thought it looked pretty. It looked actually okay. To be honest, I didn't think.
I wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting that from you.
No, neither was I. Because like this is the thing though. Like the way that they work, apparently. I mean, it feels like they're looking. They're not just doing designs for them to stand out on their own. They also do it, of course, against the backdrop of green. Because I thought the yellow really matched the green. Like, it blended in really nicely.
Okay, for the record, I thought it was horrible off the pitch and horrible on the pitch as well. I think the colour coordination, that's one of my pet hates, colour coordination.
Yeah.
When people can't coordinate the colours that they wear on
wear
the clothes.
Pink shoes with red trousers.
And all that, or wear too many colours is the one that gets me. When they've got like different colour top, different colour bottoms, different colour shoes, and they've got like then a different colour coat as well. It's just like that is a trigger. That is one of my triggers.
I know. It's funny. I love
the black and white with the really harsh yellow and no, not for me. And it's no, that's a surprise. But I want to know, can someone find out who is the designer at Adidas at the moment? Because whoever it is, what are they doing? I mean, who is this designer at Adidas? Because they absolutely butchered the Italy shirt, battered it, which is almost impossible to do.
That is difficult to do.
Because it's such a classic.
But for me, I have to say, I think the blue Italy shirt is okay. It's the white one that I think is
all awful.
Eyesore, which is incredible, because how do you fail with white and azure blue? Like that is an accomplishment. To me,
they're all awful. To borrow your words, I want to gouge my eyes out looking at them.
I say gouge my eyes out with a wooden spoon. If you're going to use it properly.
All right, just before we move on, the preview Sevilla Juventus, Cremonese, they're done now, aren't they?
Yeah, no, there's not much to say. I think Davide Ballardini should. I wonder, I was thinking this, if Davide Ballardini had taken over, like started the season with them, if they would have maybe stayed up. Like honestly, if they wouldn't have been able to beat the drop, because he's really done what he could with them. And no, it's interesting. I had them dead last. They're not going to finish dead last, and they, with 3 days left, with 4 matches left of the season, they actually had a chance to stay up. So no, kudos to them. I hope. I think this was a one-off. I don't think we'll see Cremonese in the Serie A for a few years now. But it was a nice acquaintance for people like myself who grew up in the 90s. Cremonese is Enrico Chiesa and Matias Floriancic. You know what I mean? Like those players. Like Cremonese it was a nice throwback to my childhood, the Serie A that I grew up with.
Yeah. Okay. Sevilla Juventus then, Europa League second leg preview. This is very finely balanced. First leg was 1-1 in Turin. Juventus going full on Brexit ball in this. Their first chance of the tie in the 96th minute from a corner, which got them the draw.
I love how it triggers you.
They got away with jail. Got out of jail in this for sure. I mean, Sevilla should have been clear, and the tie should have been over really by half time. But I thought Juventus were better in the second half without creating anything really until the end. But I do think the tie is still open. I do think it's wide open. I mean, Sevilla obviously are favourites, but I think that I think a lot will depend on Ocampos. He went off injured. From what I'm hearing, he's probably going to be fit, which is a blow for Juventus. Because I think if he was out, I would feel quite confident for Juventus, because I think Sevilla lost everything once Ocampos went off injured just before half time. They lost all their attacking threat. So I do think this could go either way. Sevilla have the home crowd, of course. They have the know-how. The Sevilla League. They've won it so many times. How do you see this tie?
I think you're absolutely wrong. You're absolutely right. I think this could go anyway.
Could go extra time.
Yeah, I think this could go all the way. Again, no away goals rule. So we're at parity. And I know that Allegri is not going to, he's got a chance at a European final again. It's his third with Juve. And so he's not going to, he's going to go full on Allegri. I expect them to. I want to see Chiesa and Vlahovic together in this game. I think now's the time to do it.
Vlahovic was awful in the first leg. Awful, absolutely horrendous in the first leg. I think, just judging on his picks from the Cremonese game, I think Milik is going to start this game, because he played Vlahovic for almost the entire game. He brought Milik on as a sub and then subbed him, which suggests to me that he's saving him for this game. And that's just my own hunch.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Just based on logic more than anything else.
No, absolutely. But I'm just saying, I personally would rather...
Yeah.
I'd rather start. I think now is the time for Vlahovic and Chiesa to play together.
Yeah. My biggest concern, I hate to be the anti-Italian discrimination, my biggest concern is the referee, because the ref in the first leg was a disgrace. That penalty...
That is genuinely shocking. I mean, that is one of... How did the VAR miss that? Like, I don't understand that. That is one of the clearest penalties I've seen. It's an assault on Rabiot. His leg was completely battered afterwards. It was gross. He was standing in Italian TV afterwards, talking with blood coming, and it was gross.
It was shocking. Well, what was most shocking about this is the VAR had a lifetime to make that decision, because Rabiot was down injured for so long, getting treatment. The VAR had all that time to look at the pictures, so that it wouldn't have been that they had to make it. Sometimes they're rushed because you need to get on with the game, and there was no excuse for that at all. So that's my biggest concern. Whether it's conscious or unconscious, I don't think Ceferin wants Juventus in the final. So
I think it's very safe to assume that UEFA want Juventus out as soon as possible, given that it becomes a bigger, like I said in the last week, I think it was, I can't remember when it was, I said, look, it's going to be a bigger scandal. It's going to not look good for UEFA if they actively have to go in and throw Juventus out of the Champions League as Europa League winners. So they would love it if they didn't have to do that. No doubt about that.
Yeah, there is a definite feeling. I've spoken to people inside Juventus at the club Juventus. There's a definite feeling within Juventus that Ceferin has it in for them, has it in for Juventus, and that is the feeling within. And I know they were very angry also about Ceferin coming to Italy, visiting Italy last week, and going with Gravina to the Roma game and not making any reference or any contact with them at all. With Juventus playing in the Europa League. I mean, of course, he can only go to one game of the two, but that just kind of added to the feeling that they've got at the moment that, he's come to Italy, he's decided to go to the Roma game instead of the Juventus game.
So entitled, aren't they? Oh, no, he didn't visit us. He hates us. He's discriminating against us.
On its own, no. On its own, I agree. On its own, I agree with you. But when you put it to the bigger picture, you can understand why they're very, very unhappy with him. But yeah, that's my biggest concern, the referee. I just hope that if Juventus are going to go out, they go out.
Yeah, based on what happened. That's what we want in every game. We don't want referees deciding. That's what we want all the games. We don't want the referees deciding matches.
They go out because Allegri plays 3-5-1 and they don't get out of their half. That's fine.
3-5-1-1. Thank you very much. Get it right.
Well, 3-5-1 when Vlahovic was playing the other day. Okay, right. Talking about Europa League, Roma. There's not really much to say about Bologna versus Roma. It was 0-0. Mourinho basically played his entire subs. And a few youngsters as well, actually. And it really wasn't a very good game. It was the most predictable draw I think you're ever going to get. What I want to ask you here is, do you think Mourinho is going to stay at Roma this summer? Because he is getting increasingly linked to PSG. I know that he's on PSG's shortlist, but he's not the only one on the shortlist. Do you think he stays at Roma? Or do you think a lot of it depends, what I think a lot of it depends on how the season finishes.
Yeah.
And do they get in the Champions League? What promises has he made by the board in terms of the transfer market and strengthening the squad and everything? I think that's what it depends on. But what do you think?
That's exactly my point. That's exactly where I stand with this. I think that Mourinho. I think the thing is, his eyes have always been on the Real Madrid job, and I think he wants another shot there. But does Ancelotti leave, and who replaces? It seems. Who replaces him? Do Real Madrid want him back? It doesn't seem like they do. PSG would be the right, career move for him. As he can't complain over not getting any players. So we'll have to. I think your analysis is spot on. I think it depends on the end of the season. But look, Jose, you've made this mistake before. You could be like, if you become immortal at Inter and Roma, don't leave. You stay on, because the project isn't finished. I mean, if he's got them back in the Champions League, if they win the Europa League, 2 European trophies in a row, I think he would regret it. I think leaving Inter was a mistake to go to Real Madrid in hindsight. And at the time, I completely understood it. That he did everything in Italy. He had written history with Inter. There was nothing more he could achieve. And then he went to Real Madrid and he won everything domestically with them, setting records, but he didn't win the Champions League, and that was considered a huge failure at the time. And that's when kind of around that time when his career kind of nosedove a little bit. Here he's on the way up again. And I think he needs to pick that next choice very carefully, because I don't think he can reinvent himself and come back one more time. He needs to get it right. If he were to win the Europa League, he has to sit down with the Friedkins and say, look, now we're in the Champions League. I want to compete for trophies and titles. Can we do that? What is there to be done? What can be done? What's realistic? And so on and so forth. And I think that's what matters to him. He wants to win another Champions League. He wants to win another league title. That's where we are. And I think it all comes down to that. So I hope he stays. I think Mourinho at Roma and Italy is box office. But I can't help but shake that nagging feeling that it's another one of those epic Mourinho wins European trophy, mic drop, leaves. kind of fifth next.
I think that's possible, but I also think, and this is just my own hunch, that Mourinho cares very much about the history books.
Yeah, he does.
He and there's one trophy, if I'm not mistaken, the only trophy that Mourinho hasn't won is the UEFA Super Cup. So if he wins the Europa League with Roma, then I think he'll want to stay just for that Super Cup, just to get that on his resume.
But he doesn't really care about them. I mean, he said it himself. These minor cups don't matter to him.
Well, he says that, but
no, but he said it many times over and over again. But then he's there. He wants to win it, of course.
Yeah, but I think he for him to say, in his accent, I've won every single cup there is to win. I think he'd love to say that as well. But I mean, looking ahead to that second leg against Leverkusen, Roma lead 1-0 from the first leg in Rome. They go to Germany on Thursday. I mean, I thought the first leg result was really good for Roma, considering the circumstances, considering they were decimated. I mean, they had Cristante at centre back, they had Bove at centre midfield, who scored. I was so happy for him. Belotti was basically half fit in attack. I mean, had so many players out, so many players that were half fit, like Abraham, Dybala. I mean, these players are way off full fitness. So I thought Mourinho will definitely be happy with that. I think, like the Juventus game, it's going to be very tight, the second leg. But I think that Roma, I feel quite confident about Roma. I think they're in a position that I back Mourinho. If you have to, do you know what I mean? If you have to pick who's going to go through, I back Mourinho to go through over Xabi Alonso in this tie.
No, I think so as well. I really liked how Roma were in the opening leg. I thought they were really, really good. I thought they were really well balanced, and it was really nice to see Bove, to see Eduardo Bove score. Obviously coming up through the youth ranks. I mean, we talk about young players in Primavera. Roma keep producing talent that keeps making and delivering in the first team as well. So we got to give credit there. And it's I liked how Roma were mentally in terms of their psychological well-being. They are so united, and that is really important at this stage of the season when everyone's a little bit tired and it gets to the business end. So no, I agree with you. I think, and also the fact that he rotated against Bologna so much as well. I mean, he played basically teenagers, and second string players. So I think he's going to field his absolute best squad against Bayer Leverkusen, and I think he's going to. If you call Allegri Brexit ball, then this is Brexit ball on steroids. He's gonna Bojo the crap out of this one, then. if that's the definition.
Farage.
Yeah, he's gonna do a double whammy. Farage, Bojo, and what's his name? The one that sounds like he's an evil character from a 17th century novel. What's his name?
The one that said
what's his name?
The one that said he didn't want to have wife because he didn't want to have to pay him.
Yeah, what's his name? Jacob Rees-Mogg. That's the one.
That's it.
Yeah, the Bond villain, who I think is so amusing. So yeah, I mean, if that's Brexit, then he's going to combine these three. He's going to go full on. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay, right. Across Rome, Lazio. They slip up again. They got away with it because Milan lost and everyone else below them didn't win either. So in the end, it didn't matter in the end. But it did show again that Lazio they're limping over the top four line, and they were very poor in this game until the final quarter when they really started to pour forward, trying to get the equaliser. I thought Lecce were the better team until then, and Lazio they're limping over the line. 1 win, 1 draw, 3 defeats. I think on paper they should still be fine because they've got a much kinder running than Inter and Milan, and they've got that points advantage. So I think they're gonna be fine, especially as Juventus are going to get the points penalty as well. I actually really, who I feel sorry for is I feel sorry for Lecce because they are right in a relegation battle now.
And they don't deserve to be, and it feels so unfair. But they play Spezia, don't they, on the weekend? If I'm not mistaken, they actually this is.
I wonder who will be watching that.
Oh, are you kidding me? On Sunday, on the 21st, they're a 12:30 kickoff. I love relegation scraps on a Sunday afternoon. They are the best. Do not miss. It's going to be a packed stadium. It's going to be absolute mayhem. The last few years, when we get to this part of the season and the relegation dogfight really kicks off, those early kickoffs are the most entertaining ones. Lecce Spezia, 12:30 CET. Sunday, 21st of May. Do not miss it for everything in the world. It's going to be absolutely amazing.
I love it.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, they're unlucky because if they held on to that win, the last kick of the game or deep into injury time, Lazio equalised. I mean, Lecce have a 4-point gap, and I think that's enough for them to be safe. Now they're only 2 points above the relegation zone, and it's the Spezia game is massive. It's absolutely massive. Napoli are on holiday, as you said before. They lose 2-0 to Monza. And there's not much to say about this. They're on holiday, we know. I just wanted to just very briefly, Giuntoli, Cristiano Giuntoli, the sporting director. My understanding is he will leave Napoli and go to Juventus, according to my sources, and he will leave Napoli, providing he comes to an agreement with De Laurentiis. That's the key. As long as they agree over the exit and how it all is brought about, he's going to go to Juventus. He's going to bring some of his staff with him, and it's going to be his job basically to rebuild the absolute mess in upper management in terms of the direction and the future planning of this club. It's going to be down to him. And I think that is a big positive for Juventus, and I think it's a big, big loss for Napoli because what he's done at Napoli in building this team, profit-run club, the scouting that he and his team have done, and having the manager to develop them, magnificent. I also understand, though, and this is something for you, the anti-Allegri fans, he would like to get rid of Allegri, but the question is whether he will have the power to get rid of him. And also there's the financial angle of that as well because of the amount of money.
But that's something that Juventus can't afford to have to start next season with a conflict. Like, they need to get this sorted. Can Allegri and Giuntoli coexist? If not, don't get Giuntoli or get rid of Allegri because it's not going to work. You can't start next season with that in the background. That's a recipe for disaster. Can they work together? Great. If they can't, either don't get him or get rid of Allegri. One or the other. It's as simple as that. Like, you can't start the season creating a new project with a sporting director or the new sporting CEO or whatever you want to call him doesn't want the coach there. How are they supposed to create an environment to win in that?
No, absolutely. I mean, it's it should go without saying, really, shouldn't it? I mean, it's pretty obvious that the two of them are incompatible. I mean, that's obvious. As Giuntoli buys players that are emerging and developing and wants a coach that can develop them.
I don't know. That's not an issue because Allegri's been very clear on that as well. It's like, we need to start playing young players, and he has done that. No, I'm talking about, can they work together? Like, you can't have a situation where...
but that's the reason why Giuntoli doesn't see Allegri as being right for the project, because he doesn't think he's the right kind of coach for the way that he works in terms of bringing in those kind of players. So I mean, we're in agreement. We're in agreement there. So that is one to watch. Rest of the weekend game, Atalanta lost 1-0 at Salernitana. Salernitana are virtually safe now. Atalanta's top four is definitely over, so they'll just have to play for European place. Candreva scoring. I just want to say Candreva, one of the most underrated of his generation. Really is.
He's a weird one because on the one hand he has an amazing shot on him and he can do some fantastic things, but when he gets to the very top, he just chokes and he can't deliver. He's a very one-dimensional player. He can't dribble, but his crossing, his first-time crosses into space, and his shooting long distance are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I've always liked him. I thought even for Italy, I thought he did okay. Verona 0, Torino 1, Fiorentina 2, Udinese 0. Sampdoria play Empoli tonight. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. Just on Fiorentina, they have the second leg of their Conference League semi-final They lost 2-1 at home to Basel. I'm so angry that they lost that
angry.
game at home. I am so angry. I just want to go on record. I've already told Nima that I'm joining Nima's Italiano out club if they go out with this game to Basel.
It's unacceptable.
It's unforgivable.
Did you see the 2 goals they conceded? What is that?
The second goal, definitely. The first goal, I mean, I'll give some credit to the attacker. It was a good bit of play. But the second
you don't
goal,
give that much space. In the European semi-final at home, where you're in the goal up.
Yeah, well, I mean, they shouldn't be thinking about keeping it tight. They should be blowing a team like Basel away. But it'll be unforgivable if they go out of this game.
It really is unforgivable because it's so stupid. But something that does speak for Fiorentina is they have been very good away from home in Europe this season. They've been better away from home this season in Europe. So I think that is something that...
The problem is that Basel, we know, they play with very deep block, and Fiorentina have struggled against those kind of teams because, generally this season, because of the attack, which I still think is not, top level. Let's see if they can break them down. But yeah, I will be so disappointed in Fiorentina if they don't go through the final. They've got given a golden ticket to get to the final. Right, let's finish off with Baggio and Premface of the week. Baggio.
It's actually from outside of Italy. Gaël Clichy, I don't know how you pronounce his full name.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
That was from the halfway point for Servette, I think they're called.
I didn't even know he was still playing.
Neither did I. At the age of 37, he scored an absolute fantastic goal. It was truly remarkable as well, and it was, he just took the ball, he got it in the middle of the park and just smashed it from just outside the circle, and he went to it was beautiful. Definitely one of the goals of the season candidate that. For I think next season's, what do they call it? The Puskás Award. Definitely going to be there. It was absolutely beautiful. And the trajectory of the ball as well. No, that was class, pure class.
Yeah.
So for me, that's got to be Baggio.
Premface of the week. I've got a couple. Do you have any?
No, you go. I think we've got some of the same.
Well, I'll start off with Steve McManaman on commentating on the Milan game. He called Milan AC basically throughout the game. So that's number one. That's a hallmark of the Premface, getting the names wrong and using the initials before a team name. Madrid calling them Real and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the first one. And Andy Townsend, who is
but he's a good one.
A repeat offender. Andy Townsend throughout the years. I can just say he said ahead of the Real Madrid versus Manchester City game, he basically said that only one Real Madrid player would get into the Manchester City team, and only just, he said, and that was Vinicius Junior, would only just get over. Get into the team ahead of Jack Grealish. You could argue, he said. You could argue that Vinicius Junior would just get into the team ahead of Jack Grealish. I mean, I've said this before. This is in the DNA of the Premface, that whenever an English team play against a team from outside of England, whether it's the England national team or whether it's an English team playing in Europe, they always have to debate how many players would that team get into the English team, and it always ends up being like 0 or 1 by the end of it. But they do it all the time. It's like Premfaces, they have to debate and they have to analyse how many of the opposition players would get into the English team. It happens all the time. You'll see it every single time. When there's the final, when the final is between, assuming Man City go through, when Man City get to the final and they play against Inter in the final, or Milan in the final, guarantee it 100%. You'll see it happen again. They'll be debating how many Inter players would get into the Man City team, and it'll be like 0 or 1. It'll probably be 0 actually.
It's
they'll come up with
always zero. Are you kidding
They'll
me?
say it's zero, but maybe if Lukaku is on form, maybe Lukaku could get on the bench.
Because that's the only player they know. Because he's played in it's the only player they've heard of, and he's played in England. Look, it's and because he's scored lots of goals in the Premier League. No, it's embarrassing. They don't have any knowledge, and they don't care, and they're proud of it. It's this notion of being stupid and ignorant and being proud of it. It's one thing if you're ignorant, because there's lots of football I don't watch, but I don't talk about it as if I did watch it. You see, that's the difference. Most normal people, they tend to stay away from subjects that they don't know anything about. And,
normal people.
No, it is. It's not just them though. It's something that we see all over, especially in football punditry, in all languages, and at least in the 3-4 languages that I speak. Not so much in Italy, much less in Italy actually. There's one thing they're good at. It's the best pundits, that is. They tend to stand clear of issues they don't know, and they say that as well. Oh, I don't want to talk about this, because they don't want to make themselves look like idiots. But whether it's in Sweden or North America or England, or generally, it's this notion of punditry has become this thing where you don't do any research. You're just supposed to sound clever and say something. It doesn't matter what you say as long as it sounds good when you say it. It's the packaging that matters, not the contents. When in fact, it's both matter. They both matter. And we see this all the time, whether it's stupid people saying Spalletti is Napoli's Achilles heel, whether it's this idiot saying this idiotic thing this time, and I'm sure he'll move on to the next thing next week. It's always this notion of, let's just say something cool to be cool and stir a little bit of social media traffic, and there's no analysis. It's lazy, it's comical, and it deserves nothing but contemptuous scorn.
I remember, I never forget, before the 2010 World Cup, was it the last 16 game when England got hammered 4-1 by Germany? Was it quarter-final?
Yeah.
It was the last 16, because then Germany hammered Argentina, Maradona's Argentina in the quarters, didn't they? Yeah, so before that game, when England played against Germany, I remember that the media before the game were all certain that England were gonna win the game.
No, were they? That time
but
too.
I always remember the BBC were just before the game. The preview in the studio, and I can't remember who was in the studio, but they were all debating how many Germany players would get into the England team. And they all agreed that only one Germany.
It's
one
like
Germany
a broken
player.
Like it's been sounding
I think the one Germany player might have been Neuer. I think it was Neuer, if I'm not mistaken, or I'm not sure who it was. But it was only one Germany player. Anyway, Germany went on to win 4-1. But then they repeated it after the game. They were like, how could we lose 4-1 to a team who only one player would get into the. Only one player would get into our England team.
No, but I'll tell you why. Because it's always the manager's fault. Like, this is what they do. It was Fabio Capello's fault. It was Sven-Göran Eriksson's fault. It's that guy's fault. This is the thing, though. It's never the quality, because the quality is always so good. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter if it's Danny Mills starting at right back. He still doesn't matter, because he's the best. I mean, it's this lazy analysis, or lack thereof. It's not even analysis. It's just self-glorification and patting yourself on the back and being proud of that, and overhyping mediocre players because he cost £80 million. Well, yeah, there's a reason he cost £80 million. It's because you've got, there's no one, there's a reason for that because of English players, of course, being, it
was 85 actually. If we're talking about Harry Maguire, but yeah.
But I'm talking about generally speaking. Do you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Just it's the same principle 30, 40 years. Like, for the last 40, 50 years, just change the names of the pundits and the players. It's always the same.
Longer than that. I remember reading previews of the Hungary versus England game at Wembley when they hammered them 6-3, and the I can't remember who it was, but one of the top journalists at the time said that Hungary will be stopped easily with firm tackling. Was the quote.
This is what I mean. This is what I mean. It doesn't matter who it is. It just, insert name du jour here, insert country here. England always best. When England don't win, it's the manager's fault, or it's someone else. Like, do you know what I mean? It's never because someone else was better. And it's just, or that English players weren't good enough. And this is what I think is so weird, because now I actually think England have a golden generation, a real golden generation that will win them something. But that's probably because they have better players now. It's as simple as that. They have better players now today, I think, and a depth, because they've systematically invested in youth, and they you see it all the way down to under 19 and under 17 tournaments. England produced young talent, right? But that this overhyping of players. I mean, I've seen everyone from Darren Anderton to Danny Mills to I don't know who has been hyped as one of the greatest footballers of all time in every World Cup or Euros. Yeah, Declan Rice now is Irish Pirlo, as we call him, is now the greatest thing since bread came sliced. And it's like, well, he's a good player, but it's the same thing with Ben White when they were like these ridiculous comparisons with Rafael Varane. I mean, what are you doing? And it's like I don't even think Ben White is comfortable with that comparison.
It wasn't a comparison, he was better than him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, because he's better.
Varane had never played in the Premier League.
No, and of course Varane has a World Cup, had won the World Cup and 3-4 Champions League titles by then. It's just like it is comical, and this is why people make fun of them when they lose, because when you're ignorant and arrogant and you fail, it becomes very, very amusing. It's that simple. I'm sorry, and it's not anti-English hate or anything like that. I've got lots of friends. I would love them. I'd love if
anti-English discrimination.
Yeah, no, I would love it if England won the World Cup or the Euros. I think it would be. It's a big footballing country. It's they have a huge tradition. They have some of my best friends are English. I would never begrudge them happiness and joy.
You just wouldn't congratulate Andy Townsend.
No, I wouldn't, because it's like it'd be insufferable.
Well, he's Irish apparently. Apparently, he's Irish.
Yeah, he is.
One of the fake Irish.
Yeah, didn't he play for Ireland?
Yeah, but he was one of those Jack Charlton Irish, like
Jack Charlton Irish,
like quarter. Grandfather was like quarter Irish, so they got him to
and he
play.
wasn't good enough to play for England, so he played for Ireland. Yeah,
he was one of those.
Got it.
Cool. All right, let's leave it at that. We will be back on Tuesday for the Q&A episode, and then. Actually, we have quite a lot coming up this week, actually, because we're going to have we'll have a reaction on the Milan Derby second leg. We may have one on the Europa League potentially. Yeah. We'll see how those games go.
But make sure to check out the interview we published yesterday on Sunday with Matt Rizzetta, who co-owns Ascoli and fully owns Campobasso, who they got promoted to Serie D from Eccellenza, and the incredible story that they come through putting together a team from nothing. There was nothing there. We did an interview with him in September where they just started, like the season had just started, and they put together a club basically from in 7 days, like all the way down. And they won that in record-breaking fashion, and now they're in Serie D. Make sure to check that out. It's a really, really cool story. It's
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic interview, and incredible story what they did. Maybe they can put Juventus together if they fancy it.
yeah, I'll be sure to let Matt know. He is. I mean, to be honest, the way that he works, this long-term hard work, understanding where you are, the humble approach. I think that is, that's how you build long-term. And I wish...
yeah, well, we've seen that with Napoli, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. And he was actually talking about that in the interview. Yeah. Like how he sees the Napoli model as the best way forward. And so nothing new. Wish North Six, the entire North Six group, and Campobasso and everyone there, nothing but the best. Be sure to check that interview out. And as you said, Q&A on Tuesday, pod as always, review on Thursday. I'm going to be there for the Champions League game tomorrow.
Yes, you are.
It's going to be very interesting.
So we'll have lots to talk about when you're back. For sure. Great. Okay. Thanks everybody. We'll see you in the week. Ciao, ciao.